Admiral Elena Frost sat with perfect posture at the curved table assigned to the human delegation. Her face remained calm, but her knuckles had turned white as she gripped the datapad in front of her. This was the third time today that High Arbiter Vexaloran had referred to Earth's military as quaint or developing. As I was saying, the tall, blue-skinned alien continued, waving his four-fingered hand dismissively. Humanity's vessels lack the necessary defensive capabilities to patrol the Orion sectors. For your own protection, we recommend limiting your expansion to the areas we have previously designated. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council stretched out around them, a massive dome filled with representatives from over 200 species. Most were far older members than humanity, who had only achieved faster-than-light travel 30 years ago and joined the Council 3 years back. Next to Admiral Frost, Dr. Thomas Reed, Earth's leading physicist, shifted uncomfortably. "They're doing it again," he whispered, "restricting us to the resource-poor sectors while claiming it's for our safety." Frost gave a slight nod. She had endured these patronizing sessions for 3 years now. 3 years of humanity sharing breakthrough technologies, particularly their revolutionary quantum communication system that had transformed galactic communication, and receiving very little in return except restrictions and regulations. At the center of the chamber, Counselor Trizkar, a reptilian being with gleaming scales, stood to speak. His species, the Draconids, controlled most of the Council's military forces and had been particularly hostile to human expansion. "Perhaps," Trizkar said, his voice amplified throughout the chamber, "we should consider a more formal arrangement to protect our human friends. A designated safe zone away from the more competitive regions of space," something in Admiral Frost finally snapped. Without asking for permission to speak, a breach of Council protocol, she stood up. The movement was so sudden and unexpected that the entire chamber fell silent. "Humanity," she said, her voice clear and cold, "did not travel across the stars to be treated as children." The silence deepened. No junior member had ever interrupted Council proceedings this way. "Admiral Frost," began the Council moderator, an ancient being named Ulthar, "you have not been recognized to—" "For 3 years," she continued, ignoring him completely, "Earth has extended every courtesy to this Council. We have shared our quantum communication technology, which has revolutionized how this very Council conducts its business. We have provided our medical advancements which have saved lives across a dozen worlds. We have abided by restrictions that no other member faces." She looked around the chamber, meeting the many different types of eyes watching her. "And in return, we have received nothing but condescension and limitations. We came as equals. We have been treated as anything but." The human delegation behind her, 12 men and women representing Earth's united government, exchanged glances. This was not the diplomatic script they had prepared, but not one of them moved to stop her. "Admiral," Vexaloran said, his tone now cautious, "surely you understand that newer members must earn their place in the galactic community. Your species is still quite young by cosmic standards." "Age is not wisdom," Frost replied. "Actions determine worth, and the actions of this Council have made one thing abundantly clear. Until Earth is recognized as a full voting member with equal standing, these talks serve no purpose." She closed her datapad with a decisive click. "Humanity will no longer participate in discussions where our voice is ignored, and our contributions are taken without fair compensation." The human delegation, following her lead, began collecting their materials. The Council members watched in stunned silence. "You cannot simply leave," Trizkar sputtered, his scales darkening with anger. "There are protocols, procedures. We can, and we are." Frost's gaze swept the chamber one last time. "When this Council is ready to negotiate with Earth as equals, you know how to reach us. Until then, we will chart our own path among the stars." As one, the human delegation turned and walked toward the grand doors of the chamber. Behind them, chaos erupted. Some Council members leapt to their feet, shouting objections. Others huddled together, whispering urgently. A few, mostly representatives of the younger species, watched the humans with something like admiration. Captain James Torres, Frost's military aide, fell into step beside her as they exited the chamber. "Was that wise, Admiral? The Council controls most interstellar trade routes. They need us more than they know," she replied quietly. And sometimes the only way to be treated with respect is to demonstrate that you can walk away. Outside the council building, the bright sun of Nexus Prime, the neutral planet that hosted the Galactic Council, shone down on the departing humans. Their shuttle waited to take them back to the orbital station where the human diplomatic fleet was docked. As they boarded, Dr. Reed approached the Admiral. What happens now? The Council could impose sanctions, restrict our access to essential resources. Frost allowed herself a small smile. Now, Doctor, we implement Contingency Omega. The Council believes we need them to survive. It's time they learned otherwise. In orbit above Nexus Prime, the 5 ships of the human diplomatic fleet, sleek vessels that concealed more military capability than the Council had ever been told about, powered up their engines. Admiral Frost gave the order as soon as she returned to the flagship, the UES Determination. All vessels prepare for departure. Set course for the rendezvous point. On the main view screen, they could see smaller ships hurrying from the planet's surface, likely Council representatives attempting to stop their departure or at least continue discussions. Communication. Request from the Council moderator. Admiral, reported the communications officer. Ignore it, Frost replied. They've had 3 years to listen. Now they can experience being ignored themselves. The engines of the human fleet glowed blue, then white, as they engaged. In a flash of brilliance, the ships vanished into hyperspace, leaving the Council's representatives staring at empty space. In the Council chamber, emergency sessions had already begun. Ulthar, the ancient moderator, raised his hands for silence as panic spread among the delegates. Order! We must maintain order. Vexloran approached him, visible concern on his usually composed face. This is unprecedented. No species has ever simply walked out of Council proceedings. What do they intend? Demanded Trizikar. Is this a prelude to aggression? From the back of the chamber, a small, rarely noticed delegate spoke up. Representative Moro of the Trathari, a species known for their trading expertise, had been watching the proceedings with interest. They intend to show us exactly what we lose without them, Moro said, his voice surprisingly carrying in the large space. And I fear it may be more than this Council realizes. As if to punctuate his words, the lights in the chamber flickered momentarily. Throughout the building, and indeed across many parts of Nexus Prime, communication systems that relied on human quantum technology experienced their first disruptions. It was just the beginning. In her private quarters aboard the Determination, Admiral Frost sent a single coded message back to Earth. Omega initiated. The response came almost instantly. Understood. All human vessels withdrawing from Council space. Trade restrictions implemented. Quantum network access limited to our allies only. She stared out at the stars streaking by in hyperspace. Humanity had prepared for this moment ever since they realized the true nature of the Council. Not a brotherhood of equals, but a hierarchy that intended to keep newcomers firmly under control. The Council had never bothered to ask why humans had achieved so much technological progress in such a short time. They had never questioned why Earth had been so willing to share certain advances while keeping others mysteriously hidden. They would learn soon enough. Frost touched a small pendant at her neck, a simple earthstone set in metal. It was a reminder of home and of what they were fighting for, the right to determine their own destiny among the stars. And now, she said to the empty room, we see who blinks first. Talks end abruptly as humanity walks out. The Galactic Council panics. Part 2. Ripples across the stars 2. Weeks after humanity's dramatic exit from the Galactic Council chambers, Trade Director Moro hunched over his desk, surrounded by flashing red displays. The Trathari merchant's usual calm demeanor had vanished, replaced by visible stress that made his spotted skin pale. Another shipping lane has gone dark, his assistant reported. The humans have pulled every single one of their vessels from the Cygnus trade route. Moro rubbed his temple with a 6-fingered hand. What about the automated stations? Surely they're still operating. Shut down, sir. All of them. The quantum communication network that coordinated them is offline for everyone except human ships and... The assistant hesitated. And who? Moro demanded. Their allies. The smaller species that were denied council membership. The Varine, the Solari Federation, the Dorn Collective, they all still have access. Moro leaned back in his chair, connecting the dots. The humans weren't just making a point. They were building a coalition. Across the galaxy, the effects of humanity's absence rippled outward like a shockwave. On the bustling trade world of Nexus Prime, the marketplace that normally hummed with activity had grown strangely quiet. Several stalls sat empty where human merchants once. In the quietest corner of the Grand Exchange, Dorian Vega counted a stack of credit chips, his dark eyes gleaming with satisfaction. A human trader who had spent years building relationships throughout the sector, Vega was now one of the few people who could get certain goods to desperate buyers. A nervous Quantari merchant approached his table, multiple arms fidgeting. The insectoid being's translator device buzzed as it spoke. "You have the medical supplies? The ones that treat scale rot? Our colony is suffering badly, yes." Vega finished for him, sliding a small case across the table. "Fortunately for you, Earth still values innocent lives, regardless of politics. That'll be triple the usual price." The Quantari didn't even haggle, transferring the credits immediately. As the merchant hurried away, a slender figure in a hooded cloak slid into the empty seat. Ambassador Leora Martinez removed her hood just enough for Vega to recognize her. "Enjoying your profiteering, Vega?" she asked, her voice carrying a hint of disapproval. He shrugged. "Just fulfilling my role in the plan. High prices make the council's members feel the pinch. Besides, medical supplies still go out at normal rates to non-council worlds?" Martinez nodded, then lowered her voice. "The meeting is set. Representatives from the Vereen, Solarian, Dorn will be at the coordinates tonight. They're nervous but interested." "Of course they're interested," Vega replied. "The council has kept them as second-class citizens for decades. We're offering them a real alliance with real benefits." Across the room, he noticed a group of council security officers entering the marketplace. "Time for you to go, Ambassador. I think I'm about to be harassed by our blue-skinned friends." Martinez slipped away through a back exit while Vega casually returned to his counting. The council was starting to realize that humans weren't merely throwing a tantrum. They were executing a carefully planned strategy. In deep space, far from the trade routes and populated worlds, Commander Diana West stood on the bridge of the UES Vigilant, watching as hundreds of ships maneuvered in perfect formation. The human defense fleet, much larger than anything the council knew about, had been training for months for this very scenario. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Harris, approached with a data tablet. "All ships report ready, Commander. The new shield technology has been installed across the fleet." West nodded. "And the council monitoring stations? They've noticed our exercises. Their long-range scans can detect our movements, but not the details of our capabilities, exactly as Admiral Frost wanted." "Good," West replied. "We're not hiding, but we're not revealing everything either. Send word to Admiral Frost that Phase 2 is complete." The Vigilance quantum communicator transmitted the message instantly to wherever the Admiral was now stationed, a technology that gave humanity a crucial advantage. While Council species relied on communication relays that could be monitored or disrupted, human quantum communications were instantaneous and undetectable. On the Council capital world of Nexus Prime, the emergency session had been ongoing for days. The Grand Chamber, usually so orderly, had devolved into something resembling chaos as factions formed and arguments grew heated. "We must send a military force to human space immediately," insisted Councillor Trizkar, pounding his scaled fist on the table. "Show them that their defiance has consequences. And start a war we might not win," countered Vexaloran, who had grown considerably less condescending since human ships disappeared from Council space. "Our intelligence suggests their military capabilities may exceed what they disclose to us." In the back of the room, watching silently, sat Representative Morrow. The trade specialist had been monitoring the economic impact of humanity's departure, and the numbers were grim. Resource shipments had slowed to a crawl. Specialized technology maintenance had halted. The quantum communication network, which the Council had integrated into virtually all its systems, functioned at minimal capacity. "Perhaps," Morrow suggested, rising to his feet, "we should consider what the humans actually want." "They want special treatment," Trizkar snapped. "Privileges no new species deserves. They want equal treatment," Morrow corrected. "And they've demonstrated that they can survive without us. Can we say the same about surviving without them?" The chamber fell silent as the delegates considered this uncomfortable truth. On a distant monitoring station at the edge of Council space, Junior Analyst Pelka stared at her readouts with growing concern. The station orbited a lifeless moon, tasked with watching the border between Council territory and the region humans had claimed for themselves. "Captain," she called to her superior, "you should see this." Captain Jarvik, a veteran of the Council security force, moved to her station. "What am I looking at?" "Energy signatures. Massive ones. They appeared briefly when a human vessel dropped out of hyperspace, then disappeared again." "A malfunction in your equipment, perhaps?" Pelka shook her head. "I've checked it 3 times. Sir, if these readings are accurate, the human ships are carrying power sources far beyond anything they've shown us before." Jarvik frowned. "Send the data to headquarters, encrypted channel, and keep this to yourself." The information Pelka had discovered would soon join other troubling reports filtering back to the Council. Human military vessels conducting unprecedented exercises near their borders, new outposts appearing overnight, and strange energy signatures that suggested technology the humans had never shared. Meanwhile, in a luxurious private chamber on a neutral world called Haven, Ambassador Martinez sat across from representatives of 3 species: the crystalline Varine, the cloud-like Solari, and the silicon-based Dorn. All had applied for Council membership in the past century. All had been denied full status and kept as associate members with limited rights. "Earth offers you a different path," Martinez explained, her voice calm but passionate. "A true alliance of equals, shared technology, mutual defense, and fair trade. The Council will see this as betrayal," noted the Varine representative, light refracting through his crystalline form. "The Council has already betrayed you," Martinez replied. "They've taken your resources, limited your expansion, and denied you a voice in decisions that affect your people. We're offering you a voice and the power to make it heard. What guarantees do we have that humans won't simply become the new tyrants?" asked the Dorn representative, her silicon body shifting skeptically. Martinez smiled and activated a holographic display. It showed technical specifications for advanced shields, weapons, and hyperdrives. "This is our good faith offering, the technology we've kept hidden from the Council, freely shared with our allies. We don't want servants or subordinates. We want partners who will stand with us as equals." The representatives exchanged glances, their doubt visibly fading. "There's one more thing," Martinez added, deactivating the display. "In 3 days, a Council trade delegation will visit your worlds, offering concessions to maintain your loyalty." They're panicking, you see. They've realized how quickly their carefully balanced system can fall apart. The Solari representative's cloudy form rippled with what might have been laughter. They never made such offers before. "Exactly," Martinez said. "Remember that when they suddenly treat you as important. Ask yourselves why it took humanity leaving for them to value you." Back on the human colony world of New Terra, Admiral Frost stood in an underground command center, watching as data streamed in from across the galaxy. Her gamble was paying off, but the next phase would be the most dangerous. "Admiral," a communications officer called out, "we're receiving an official request from the Council. They want to reopen diplomatic channels." Frost allowed herself a small smile. "They blinked first, good. Send our standard response." The officer nodded and transmitted the message that had been sent to every Council communication. A simple statement that Earth would return to. "Discussions only when offered full membership and equal status. Do you think they'll agree?" asked Captain Torres, who had stood by her through the Council walkout. "Eventually," Frost replied, "but not before they try threats, bribes, and probably some underhanded tactics. The old powers never give up control willingly. And if they resort to military action?" Frost's expression hardened. "Then they'll learn why it's unwise to underestimate humanity." In his private quarters on Nexus Prime, High Arbiter Vexaloran reviewed the latest intelligence reports with growing alarm. Human ships had been spotted meeting with vessels from the Varine, Solari, and Dorn. Trade had already begun between these species, bypassing Council routes and taxation. More disturbing were the reports from the monitoring stations. Whatever the humans were building in their territory, it generated energy readings unlike anything Council scientists had seen before. "They were planning this all along," he murmured to himself. "Every technology they shared, every concession they made, it was all while preparing for this moment." For the first time in his long career, Vexilloran felt genuine fear. The Council had miscalculated badly. They had treated humanity as just another young species to be managed and controlled, never stopping to ask why a civilization that had achieved so much so quickly would accept a subordinate position. Now they were facing not just the loss of a useful member species, but potentially the emergence of a rival power block that could challenge the Council's dominance of the galaxy. The next Council session would be critical. Somehow they needed to bring the humans back to the table, but the price of doing so had just gone up dramatically. As stars twinkled in the night sky above Nexus Prime, few Council members slept soundly. The comfortable certainty of their galactic dominance had been shaken by a species they had dismissed as newcomers. And the tremors were only beginning. Talks end abruptly as humanity walks out. The Galactic Council panics. Part 3. The Hidden Fleet Council Security Commander. Jalor stared at the holographic display with growing unease. The massive Draconid officer's scales shifted from their usual green to a worried blue as he studied the energy readings. "Run the analysis again," he ordered the technician beside him. "Sir, I've already run it 3 times, the young Quatari replied, multiple limbs moving across the control panel. "The readings are accurate. These energy signatures in the unexplored sectors near human space are unlike anything we've recorded before." Jalor rumbled low in his throat, a sign of deep concern among his species. 1 month after humanity's dramatic departure from the Council chambers, disturbing intelligence was filtering in from across the galaxy. This latest discovery might be the most troubling yet. "Magnify Sector 7, he commanded. The hologram zoomed in, showing a distant region of space where several massive energy sources glowed brightly. The pattern was unmistakable, a fleet. A substantial military fleet that vastly exceeded what humanity had disclosed to the Council. "How many vessels are we detecting?" Jailer asked. The technician's antennae drooped slightly. "Conservative estimate based on energy outputs?" "At least 300 capital ships, sir. Possibly more." 300? Jailor's tail lashed behind him involuntarily. "They claim to have only 50 deep space vessels. It appears they weren't entirely truthful, Commander." Jalor dismissed the technician and secured the room before opening a direct channel to High Arbiter Vexilloran. This was information too sensitive for regular communication channels. Meanwhile, on Earth's moon, General Marcus Reed watched as the final components of the Sentinel Defense Network were locked into place. The massive installation, hidden on the far side of the moon, represented humanity's most advanced defensive technology. "Shield generators online," reported Colonel Davis, his second-in-command. "Power systems at 98% capacity. The network can be fully operational within 6 hours." Reed nodded with satisfaction. The lunar base hummed with activity as technicians and soldiers worked to complete Earth's new protective barrier. Planetary shield system developed in secret over the past 5 years. "What about the Mars and Venus outposts?" Reed asked. "Both report ready status, sir. Once activated, the triangle formation will create a complete defensive envelope around Earth and all inner solar system colonies." Lieutenant Sofia Alvarez approached, hesitation visible in her stance. "Sir, permission to speak freely?" "Go ahead, Lieutenant. Some of the crew are questioning our aggressive stance. We've effectively cut ties with the Council, hidden military assets, and are now activating defense systems that could be seen as provocative. Are we preparing for war?" Reed considered her question carefully. As one of the few military leaders who had witnessed the Proxima Centauri massacre firsthand, he carried the burden of that memory every day. "We're preparing to never be victims again, Lieutenant. 7 years ago, human colonists called for help when raiders attacked Proxima Centauri. The Council peacekeepers arrived 3 days later, despite having ships less than 6 hours away." His face darkened at the memory. 2,000 colonists died while Council ships sat in nearby systems, supposedly assessing the threat. After that, Earth made a decision. We would never again rely on others for our protection. Alvarez nodded slowly, understanding dawning in her eyes. "This isn't aggression, Lieutenant. It's insurance. The Council needs to understand that humanity is not a junior partner to be controlled. We are equals who demand respect. Sometimes that lesson requires a show of strength." Across human-controlled space, a similar determination took hold. On the colony world of Avalon, Governor Talia Wong addressed her planet's population through a system-wide broadcast. Citizens of Avalon, as you know, Earth has temporarily suspended relations with the Galactic Council, she announced, her calm voice belying the seriousness of the situation. While diplomatic channels remain open for eventual reconciliation, we must prepare for a period of potential isolation. Behind her, displays showed new resource distribution networks, emergency protocols, and defense system upgrades. Unlike the panicked reactions the Council might have expected, human colonies exhibited remarkable organization and resolve. Our world is self-sufficient in food production, and our manufacturing facilities are being retooled to produce essential goods previously imported from Council worlds. Wong continued. There may be shortages of certain luxury items, but no one will go without necessities. She smiled confidently. Humanity has faced challenges before. We reach the stars through our own determination, and we will navigate this new chapter the same way, together. The broadcast ended, and Wong turned to her advisors. What's the status of the emergency fleet? Fully operational, Governor, replied Defense Minister Nolan. 30 vessels with the new shield technology are in position around Avalon. Another 20 are patrolling the outer system. Good. And the Council observers? Still present. They're reporting everything back just as Admiral Frost predicted. Wong nodded with satisfaction. Let the Council see that human worlds weren't descending into chaos without their oversight. Let them wonder how colonies supposedly dependent on Council trade networks were functioning so well on their own. In a luxury resort on the neutral territory of Haven, a different kind of meeting was taking place. Council Intelligence Officer Nix, a slender being with pale skin and large dark eyes, sat at a private table in the resort's most exclusive restaurant. His species, the Ithali, were known for their analytical minds and photographic memories, making them perfect intelligence gatherers. Across from him sat his human contact, Dr. Elliot Parker, a silver-haired man whose casual demeanor masked one of the sharpest minds in Earth's scientific community. You're taking a significant risk meeting me, Nix observed, his voice barely above a whisper. Your government has made its position on Council contact quite clear, Parker smiled. Some of us believe that communication should never be fully severed, even during disagreements. Is that what this is? A disagreement? What would you call it? Nix leaned forward. My superiors fear it's the prelude to something worse. Human ships are moving in coordinated patterns. Your colonies are building up defenses, and our long-range scans have detected energy signatures consistent with a large military fleet. Perhaps we've simply been more cautious than we let on, Parker replied. Surely the Council doesn't begrudge us the right to defend ourselves. Self-defense doesn't require deception. Parker's expression hardened slightly. Doesn't it? When we joined the Council, we shared our quantum communication technology openly. In return, we received patronizing lectures and restrictions. We revealed our medical advancements only to find them being used primarily to benefit the founding species. He took a sip of his drink before continuing. Trust requires reciprocity, Officer Nix. The Council never trusted us, so we kept certain developments to ourselves. Simple self-preservation. Nix processed this information with growing concern. These certain developments, how extensive are they? For the first time, Parker looked genuinely amused. That's what frightens your superiors, isn't it? Not knowing. Let me tell you something that may help you understand our position better. He leaned in closer. Humans didn't walk out on a whim. We had been planning this strategic separation for months, perhaps years. Every Council weakness, every dependency they developed on our technology, every alliance we could form with marginalized species, all cataloged and prepared for. The information was shocking. Nix had expected to gather hints about human military capabilities. Instead, he was learning that the entire situation had been orchestrated as part of a long-term strategy. Why are you telling me this? He asked. Because the Council needs to understand what they're dealing with, Parker replied. This isn't a tantrum thrown by an immature species. It's a calculated move to force recognition of our rightful place in the galactic community. As Nix rose to leave, his mind racing with implications, Parker added one final comment. Oh, and you should know. Your ship has been under observation since you arrived in the system. The Council's attempt at espionage was anticipated. Nix hurried back to his vessel, suddenly eager to deliver his report. As he approached the spaceport, his communicator chimed with an alert from his pilot. Multiple ships had changed course to parallel their planned departure route. The human words echoed in his mind. Anticipated. They had known he was coming. They had allowed the meeting to happen, which meant Dr. Parker had told him exactly what the humans wanted the Council to know. On Nexus Prime, the Council capital, an emergency session had been called to address the growing crisis. What had begun as a diplomatic incident had evolved into a serious threat to the Council's authority and stability. High Arbiter Vexaloran, looking noticeably thinner and more stressed than a month earlier, called the session to order. Esteemed colleagues, we face an unprecedented situation. The human delegation's departure has sparked a chain reaction that threatens the very foundation of our galactic community. The chamber, usually a model of decorum, erupted into multiple conversations as delegates spoke over one another. Senior Counselor Drav, representing one of the oldest council species, rose to his feet. His ancient hollowed voice cut through the noise. The solution is simple. We must take immediate military action to contain the human threat before it grows further. Several delegates shouted their agreement, while others objected vehemently. And start a war we might not win? Countered Representative Morrow of the Trathari. Our economies are already suffering from their absence. Imagine the damage actual conflict would cause. Then economic sanctions, suggested another delegate.
Cut them off completely from all council worlds and trade routes. Philosopher Delegate Thune, the oldest being in the chamber, finally spoke.
His species was ancient when most others were still evolving intelligence, and his words always carried special weight. Antagonizing the humans further would be catastrophic, he said, his voice like rustling leaves. They have shown remarkable restraint thus far. They have not attacked council vessels or territories, merely withdrawn their presence and support. He gazed around the chamber with eyes that had witnessed millennia of galactic history. This council has forgotten a fundamental truth. Respect must be earned, not demanded. The humans asked for equal treatment and were denied based on arbitrary standards of age and tradition. His next words silenced the chamber completely. Perhaps the question we should be asking is not how to force the humans back into their place, but whether that place was fair to begin with. In deep space, far from the Council's deliberations, Captain Samira Khoury of the Earth vessel Intrepid monitored her sensors carefully. Her ship had detected a Council Black Ops team attempting to slip past the perimeter defenses around the Perseus colony, one of humanity's most distant outposts. They're scanning our defense grid, reported her tactical officer, trying to map our capabilities. Khoury considered her options. Standing orders from Admiral Frost were clear. No aggression against Council forces, but no compromise on security either. Lock weapons on their engines only, she ordered. Open a channel. The view screen flickered to life, showing the surprised face of a Council Special Operations Commander. Council vessel? Khoury stated calmly. You have entered restricted space without authorization. Our weapons are locked on your engines. You have 30 seconds to reverse course. The commander's expression shifted from surprise to calculation. We're on a peaceful scientific mission, Captain. These restrictions violate Council open space agreements. Those agreements apply to Council members, Khoury replied. Earth has suspended its membership. 20 seconds. Faced with the unwavering resolve in Khoury's eyes, the Council commander finally nodded to someone off-screen. His ship began to turn. A wise decision, Khoury said. You may inform your superiors of this encounter, and deliver a message. Tell your masters that next time we won't be so merciful. Perseus colony remains under human protection, regardless of our Council status. As the Council ship departed, Khoury sent her own report back to Earth Command. Another test of human resolve, another clear message sent. The Council was probing for weaknesses, looking for any sign that humanity's united front might be fracturing. They would find none. On the Council capital world, ordinary citizens began experiencing the effects of humanity's absence. Communication delays caused frustration as the quantum network humans had built operated at reduced capacity. Certain medicines became scarce. Technological systems that had been integrated with human innovations developed glitches that local engineers struggled to fix. Public opinion, once indifferent to the human situation, began to shift. Questions arose about why the Council had alienated such valuable allies. News feeds that had initially reported the human walkout as a diplomatic faux pas now discussed the growing consequences. In a bold and unexpected move, the trade guild leaders from across council space convened their own emergency meeting. Led by the shrewd Vox Tamira, a merchant whose operations spanned dozens of worlds, they drafted a petition to the council. The continued absence of human trade and technology is causing unacceptable economic damage, the petition stated. If diplomatic relations are not restored within 30 standard days, the combined guilds will withdraw financial support from council operations until such time as trade stability is restored. It was nothing short of blackmail, but it reflected a growing reality. The council needed humanity's contributions more than they had realized. As pressure mounted from multiple directions, council intelligence made a truly alarming discovery. Several previously loyal member species had begun secret negotiations with Earth. The Varine, the Solari Federation, the Dorn Collective, and others, all species that had been kept at associate status for decades, were meeting regularly with human diplomats. The potential coalition would rival the Council's influence and power. Worse, they might be sharing technology that the Council had carefully restricted. The panic that had begun in closed chambers now spread throughout the galactic community. Questions once unthinkable were being asked openly. What if humanity isn't planning to return to the Council at all? What if they're creating something new, something that might render the ancient Council obsolete? For the first time in thousands of years, the future of the galactic order hung in balance. And the species holding that balance was one the Council had dismissed as newcomers only months before. Talks end abruptly as humanity walks out. The Galactic Council panics. Part 4. Desperate Measures. The Grand Council Chamber had changed dramatically in the 2 months since humanity's walkout. Once a place of order and ceremony, it had devolved into a room filled with arguing factions. The circular table, designed to symbolize equality, now clearly showed divisions as delegates clustered in groups. Voices raised. Senior Counselor Drav stood at the center, his ancient body trembling with anger. The Zorvan delegate's normally blue skin had darkened to near purple. "I demand immediate military action to contain the human threat," he shouted, silencing the chamber temporarily. "Our scouts report they have built defense systems around all their major colonies. They are preparing for conflict." High Arbiter Vex Lauren raised his four-fingered hand for calm. "Counselor, we have no proof that these are offensive preparations. The humans claim they are merely protecting their territories, while building alliances with species we kept in check for good reason," Drav countered. "The Varine are dangerous, the Solari unpredictable. By giving them advanced technology, humans threaten the balance we've maintained for millennia." From her seat, Trade Director Lyra offered a different perspective. Her species, known for practical thinking, had suffered significant economic losses since the human departure. Military action would only worsen our position, she argued. Already, 15% of interstellar commerce has been disrupted. Key resources from human worlds have stopped flowing. The economic sanctions you propose would harm us far more than them. The debates continued in circles, growing more heated as reports arrived hourly of new developments. Human vessels had been spotted near restricted sectors. Communications with several associate member species had become irregular. Strange energy signatures had been detected near Earth itself. In the back of the chamber, ancient philosopher Delegate Thune watched with sorrowful eyes. His species had helped found the Council thousands of years ago, and he had served as a voice of wisdom for centuries. "We created this crisis ourselves," he said softly to those seated near him. "We forgot that respect must flow in both directions. The humans asked for equality, and we offered patronizing tolerance instead." A junior delegate scoffed. "They're barely space-capable by historical standards. Why should we treat them as equals?" Thune's ancient eyes fixed on the younger being. "Because they have proven their worth through actions, not age. In 3 decades of spaceflight, they revolutionized quantum communications, advanced medical science beyond what we achieved in centuries, and demonstrated remarkable unity as a species." His gaze swept the arguing chamber. "Now they demonstrate another quality we should have respected: determination. Antagonizing them further would be catastrophic." In deep space, Captain Samira Kuri of the Earth vessel Intrepid remained on high alert. Her ship patrolled the outer boundary of the Perseus colony, one of humanity's most distant settlements. "Contact approaching, Captain," reported her sensor officer. Appears to be a Council Black Ops team trying to slip past our perimeter. Corey frowned. This was the third such attempt in as many weeks. The Council was growing bolder in its intelligence-gathering efforts. Intercept course, she ordered. Weapons on standby, but do not target unless I give the command. The Intrepid swung gracefully through space, positioning itself directly in the path of the approaching vessel. The Council ship, designed for stealth rather than combat, froze in place. Open a channel, Corey commanded. The view screen activated, showing a Draconid commander whose scales shifted nervously from green to yellow. Council vessel, Corey stated firmly. You have entered restricted human space without authorization. Reverse course immediately. We are on a diplomatic mission, the commander replied, the lie obvious in his tone. To a colony that has received no notification of your arrival, with stealth systems activated? Corey allowed a small smile to cross her face. Your council may consider us young, Commander, but we are not fools. She leaned forward in her captain's chair. You will leave this system now. Tell your masters that next time we won't be so merciful. The council ship hesitated only briefly before turning around. As they departed, Corey's communications officer reported an incoming message from Earth Command. Admiral Frost wants a full report on the incursion, Captain. She also says to prepare for the next phase. Corey nodded. Whatever the Admiral had planned, it was clear the time for passive resistance was ending. On the Council capital world of Nexus Prime, ordinary citizens had begun experiencing the effects of humanity's absence in their daily lives. The quantum communication network that had become integral to galactic society now operated at reduced capacity, causing delays and disruptions. In a crowded public square, a news broadcast flickered on a massive display. The reporter, a Quantari whose multiple limbs gestured expressively, described the latest developments. Shortages of key medicines developed by human scientists have been reported on 17 worlds. Communication systems continue to experience failures. The Council assures citizens that alternative technologies are being developed, but experts suggest it could take years to replace human innovations. The crowd watching the broadcast murmured with discontent. Public opinion, which had initially viewed the human walkout as a diplomatic tantrum by a junior species, had shifted dramatically as the consequences became apparent in everyday life. In her office overlooking the capital city, Council member Lyra received a delegation from the combined trade guilds. Their leader, the shrewd Vox Tamira, came straight to the point. The situation has become untenable, he stated, placing a data crystal on her desk. This contains our formal ultimatum. If diplomatic relations with humanity are not restored within 30 standard days, the guilds will withdraw all financial support from Council operations. Lyra stared at him in shock. That's blackmail. That's business, Tamira corrected. The continued absence of human trade and technology is causing unacceptable economic damage. Our profits have fallen by 26%. Major construction projects are stalled without human engineering expertise. The new medical facilities on 6 worlds sit empty without human-designed equipment. He leaned forward. The Council exists to facilitate cooperation and prosperity. If it fails in that basic function, what purpose does it serve? After the trade delegation departed, Lyra immediately contacted High Arbiter Vexaloran with the disturbing news. The political pressure was mounting from all sides. Meanwhile, Council intelligence discovered something truly alarming. Several previously loyal member species had begun secret negotiations with Earth. The Varine, the Solari Federation, the Dorn Collective, all had sent representatives to meet with human diplomats on neutral worlds. What are they offering these species? Vexloran demanded when presented with the evidence. Intelligence Officer Nix, who had personally met with a human contact, offered his assessment. Equality, Arbiter. Full partnership in a new alliance structure, access to technology we've restricted, and protection from Council reprisals. Protection? With what? Nix displayed the sensor readings from the edge of human space. This fleet that they somehow built without our knowledge. Our analysts estimate their military capabilities may rival those of our 3 strongest member species combined. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans weren't merely seeking better terms from the Council, they were creating an alternative to it. On Earth's moon, Admiral Frost reviewed the latest reports in the underground command center. Representatives from 7 non-council species had agreed to formal alliance talks. The quantum shield network around Earth and its colonies was fully operational. The fleet stood ready. "It's time for the final phase," she told her assembled staff. "Send the message to all human vessels and colonies. Operation New Dawn commences in 24 hours. Across human space, preparations that had been months in the making accelerated to their conclusion. On colony worlds, governors addressed their populations, explaining the historic significance of what was about to happen. On the diplomatic vessel Determination, Ambassador Martinez prepared for what would be the most important meeting of her career. The ship was en route to a neutral location, where representatives from Earth's new allies waited. "Are you nervous?" asked her aide. Martinez smiled. "I'm helping to reshape the galactic order. I'd be concerned if I wasn't nervous." In the council chamber on Nexus Prime, an unprecedented vote was taking place. After hours of heated debate, Vexilloran had called for a decision on a radical proposal, offering humanity immediate full membership status with equal voting rights, everything they had demanded before walking out. "This is surrender," Councillor Drav protested. "We cannot reward their defiance." "This is survival," countered Lyra. "Our economy cannot sustain their continued absence, and now we face the prospect of losing other members to their alliance." The vote proceeded with tension filling the chamber. When the results appeared on the main display, even Vexilloran seemed shocked. By the narrowest margin possible, the council had approved the offer. "Transmit our proposal to Earth immediately," he ordered. "Use all channels." But when communications officers attempted to send the message, they discovered something disturbing. All quantum communication links to human worlds had gone silent. Conventional signals would take days to reach Earth, too slow for the urgent diplomacy needed. "What does this mean?" demanded a junior counselor. Philosopher Delegate Thune, who had remained silent during the vote, spoke with grave certainty. "It means we are too late. The humans have made their decision. In deep space, at a location carefully chosen for its symbolic value, directly on the border between council space and human territory, 20 ships appeared in perfect formation. The flagship Determination took the central position, flanked by vessels representing the Varine, the Solari, the Dorn, and other species who had chosen to ally with humanity. From the bridge of the Determination, Admiral Frost surveyed the historic gathering. After decades of accepting second-class status in the galactic community, these species had united with humanity to forge something new. "Open a broadcast channel," she ordered. "Maximum range, all frequencies." When communications confirmed the link was active, Frost stood tall before the camera. Her message would reach every corner of known space, including the council chamber where delegates still argued about how to handle the human situation. "Attention all sentient beings," she began. "I speak today not just for Earth, but for a new alliance of free worlds. For too long, the Galactic Council has maintained a system where age, not merit, determines status, where founding members enjoy privileges denied to others, where younger species are expected to contribute without receiving equal voice. Throughout council space, beings paused to watch the broadcast as it appeared on screens and public displays. Today, we announce the formation of the Stellar Confederation, a union of equals bound by mutual respect and cooperation. Our members, regardless of their age as spacefaring civilizations, will enjoy equal rights, equal protection, and equal opportunities. On the council capital, stunned silence fell as the implications became clear. To the Galactic Council, we extend an open hand. We seek not conflict but cooperation between our respective organizations. There is room enough among the stars for different approaches to galactic governance. Frost's expression hardened slightly. But know this. The days of treating younger species as subordinates are over. The Stellar Confederation will defend its members against any aggression or coercion, with all the considerable resources at our disposal. The broadcast ended, leaving the council members staring at blank screens. What they had feared most had come to pass. Humanity hadn't simply walked away from the table. They had built an entirely new one and invited others to join them. In the silent council chamber, Philosopher Delegate Thune spoke softly. And so the cycle continues. Power shifts. New ideas challenge old structures, as it has always been. High Arbiter Vexilloran, looking suddenly much older, asked the question on everyone's mind. What do we do now? Thune's ancient eyes held a wisdom born of millennia. We adapt, or we perish. The humans have taught us that age does not always equal wisdom, nor tradition superiority. Perhaps it is time we learned that lesson. As the Council descended into urgent discussions about how to respond to this unprecedented development, the ships of the newly formed Stellar Confederation dispersed to begin their work. A new chapter in galactic history had begun, one where humanity and its allies would chart their own course among the stars. The panic that had started in the Council chamber had spread throughout the established galactic order. For the first time in thousands of years, the future was uncertain. The species that had been dismissed as newcomers had changed everything with a single powerful choice. They had simply walked away. Talks end. Abruptly, as humanity W. Alks out. The Galactic Council panics. Part 5. The New Paradigm. 3 months after humanity's dramatic exit from the Galactic Council chambers, a historic meeting was arranged on neutral territory. The ancient space station Oracle, built by a long-vanished precursor species, hung in space at the exact midpoint between Council space and the newly formed Stellar Confederation, the station's central chamber, a massive dome of transparent material that offered a breathtaking view of the surrounding stars, had been prepared for the most significant diplomatic event in recent galactic history. Admiral Elena Frost arrived aboard the human flagship Determination, but she did not come alone. With her stood representatives from 7 other species who had formerly allied with Earth in the Stellar Confederation: the crystalline Varine, the cloud-like Solari, the silicon-based Dorn, and others who had previously endured secondary status under Council rule. "They're here," announced Captain Torres, Frost's trusted aide, as sensors detected the arrival of the Council delegation. Frost nodded, her expression revealing nothing of her inner thoughts. "Remember our position. We negotiate as equals or not at all." The Council had sent its highest-ranking members, a sign of how seriously they now took the situation. Most shocking of all was the presence of Supreme Arbiter Zal, the reclusive head of the Council, who, for the first time in recorded history, had left the capital world of Nexus Prime. The ancient being, whose species had helped found the Council thousands of years earlier, moved with deliberate slowness as he entered the chamber. Behind him came High Arbiter Vexaloran, Trade Director Lyra, and several other senior Council representatives. Their expressions ranged from barely concealed anger to nervous apprehension. The 2 delegations faced each other across the circular table at the center of the chamber. No one sat. The tension in the room was palpable. Supreme Arbiter Zal broke the silence, his voice surprisingly melodious for such an ancient being. "Admiral Frost, we meet at last." Frost inclined her head slightly. "Supreme Arbiter, I appreciate your willingness to travel so far from your comfort. These are unusual circumstances." Zal's many-faceted eyes studied her carefully. "You have created quite a disruption in the galactic order." "We have created an alternative," Frost corrected. "One based on merit rather than age." Vexaloran stepped forward, unable to contain himself. "You've undermined thousands of years of stability, encouraged rebellion among member species, hidden military capabilities that violate numerous treaties." The Varine representative, whose crystalline body refracted light in complex patterns, spoke up. "Treaties that applied to Council members, which Earth no longer is. As for rebellion, is it rebellion to seek fair treatment after centuries of second-class status?" Lyra, ever the pragmatist, intervened before the discussion could devolve further. "Perhaps we should focus on practical matters. The economic disruption caused by this situation is harming worlds across the galaxy. Surely none of us want innocent beings to suffer." "On that we can agree," Frost said, "which is why the Confederation has continued to provide essential medical supplies to all worlds, regardless of political affiliation." She gestured to her delegation. "We are not here to argue over past grievances. We're here to establish the framework for peaceful coexistence between our organizations." "Supreme Arbiter." Zal tilted his ancient head. "And what would such a framework entail?" The negotiations that followed were unlike anything in galactic history. For hours, the 2 sides discussed borders, trade agreements, technology sharing, and security arrangements. Through it all, one thing became abundantly clear. The humans and their allies weren't pleading or demanding. They were simply stating the terms under which they would consider reconnecting with galactic society. Full voting rights for any species that achieves interstellar travel, Frost insisted, regardless of how long they've been spacefaring. Impossible, Vexilloran objected. Young species lack the perspective to what? To know what's best for themselves. The Solari representative's cloud-like form darkened with emotion. My species has been interstellar for 700 years. We've been denied full council membership the entire time, always told a few more centuries would prove our readiness. Frost continued, military autonomy for all sovereign worlds. No species should be forced to rely on others for their defense. This point clearly troubled the council delegation, who exchanged concerned glances. And equal treatment for all sentient species regardless of technological development, Frost concluded. The strong helping the developing, not exploiting them. When the council hesitated to respond to these core demands, Admiral Frost revealed humanity's final leverage. With a nod to Dr. Reed, who had been part of the original council walkout, a holographic display activated. In the center of the table, Earth scientists have discovered principles of interdimensional physics that make our current technological contributions seem trivial by comparison, she explained as the display showed equations and models that clearly shocked the council scientists. Present, Reed elaborated. These principles allow for energy generation at unprecedented levels and potentially travel between parallel realities. This knowledge will be shared only with our allies and any who join the Confederation. In a dramatic reversal, the Council found itself on the supplicant side of diplomacy. The species that they had dismissed as newcomers now stood as the architect of a new galactic order, one with technologies that could reshape civilization itself. After 16 hours of intense negotiation, Supreme Arbiter Zal requested a recess. The Council delegation withdrew to their ship for private discussions, leaving the Confederation representatives to wait. They're stalling, Captain Torres suggested, hoping to find some weakness in our position. Ambassador Martinez, who had built the alliances that formed the Confederation's foundation, shook her head. They're coming to terms with a new reality. For thousands of years, they've been the unchallenged center of galactic civilization. Now they must adapt or become irrelevant. When the Council delegation returned 3 hours later, a change was evident in their demeanor. Even Vexilloran, who had been the most resistant, seemed to have accepted the inevitable. Supreme Arbiter Zal spoke for the Council. We propose a new arrangement. The Galactic Council will implement reforms to address the inequities you have identified. In return, we ask that the Stellar Confederation consider a formal partnership rather than competing power structures. He continued, full voting rights will be extended to all spacefaring species, phased in over a 5-year period. Military autonomy will be recognized for all sovereign worlds, and we will establish a joint commission to ensure fair treatment of developing species. Frost studied the ancient being carefully. And Earth? What status would we hold in this reformed council? Full membership, effective immediately, Zal replied, with all rights and privileges thereof. The Admiral looked to her allies, each of whom gave subtle signals of approval. We would need these terms formalized in a binding agreement, with specific timelines and verification protocols. Of course, and the Confederation remains intact during the transition period to ensure compliance. Zal's many-faceted eyes narrowed slightly, but he nodded. Acceptable. As the details were finalized and the historic new Oracle Accords took shape, Admiral Frost stepped away from the table momentarily. Captain Torres joined her at the transparent dome, where they gazed out at the stars. Did we win? Torres asked quietly. Frost considered the question. We achieved our objectives. The Council will reform. Our allies will receive the recognition and rights they deserve. Earth will have equal standing in galactic affairs. But lasting change requires more than signed agreements. It requires a genuine shift in perspective. She watched as Council members and Confederation representatives began to mingle, cautiously at first, then with increasing openness. That will take time. Torres followed her gaze. Do you think they understand what really happened here? Why they couldn't simply force us back into line? Some do, Frost replied. The wisest among them recognize that our greatest weapon was never our ships or technology. It was our willingness to walk away from a table where we weren't respected. Sometimes the most powerful negotiating tactic is simply standing up and leaving. Back on Earth, the news of the Accords was met with celebration. What had begun as a risky diplomatic gambit had resulted in a fundamental restructuring of galactic politics. Humanity had gone from junior member to equal partner in the span of just a few months. In the presidential office in New Geneva, Earth's United Government Headquarters, President Alonso received the transmission from Admiral Frost. "Congratulations, Admiral," he said when the connection was established. "Your strategy succeeded beyond our most optimistic projections." Frost, appearing tired but satisfied, offered a small smile. "It was a collective effort, Mr. President. From your initial approval of Contingency Omega to every colony governor who prepared their world for possible isolation. We succeeded because we were united, and our new allies. They stood with us to the end. The Varine, the Solari, the Dorn, all took substantial risks in breaking from the Council. We owe them our continued support during the transition." The President nodded thoughtfully. "And the Council itself? Do you believe they will honor these